and welcome to Thrift Shop Biography. This is the one about Matthew McConaughey. Thank you for listening. Hello, Cleo.
Hello, Richard.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks. I'm feeling all philosophised out this week.
Philosophised and bumper stickered out.
Who knew that Matthew McConaughey was such a great philosopher, hey?
I know, it's incredible. Not. Anyway, so that's a good introduction to Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, I feel like we've done him a disservice already.
No.
I've got to be honest, I really liked this book.
I really did as well. Oh my God. I want to laugh at his absolute tin pot philosophy, but I actually really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed his story.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I know we can laugh at his life-affirming ruminations. Ramblings. Yes, that's better. Yeah, of course we can. He should stick to acting.
I know, but he's still got a good story.
I liked spending time with him in this book. He's good at telling stories. Well, we'll find out about that as we go, but it's a good book.
Yeah, I agree. What did you know? I'm going to ask you. What did you know about him before?
I knew he was an actor.
Yeah.
No, it's funny because, we recently did Gina Davis. I think there are quite a few similarities between both of these stories.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, but I realised reading Gina Davis that I'd seen almost all of her films.
Yeah.
I realised reading Matthew McConaughey that I've seen the Dallas Buyers Club and that's it.
Yeah, same here.
So what did I know about him? If I'm being honest, I knew he was a good-looking American actor who got arrested for playing the bongos in the nude.
Did you? I didn't even know that.
You're so out of touch.
Oh, my God.
It was a while ago, yeah.
Well, I wouldn't have even known who he was at that point because I hadn't seen any of his films. And I still mostly haven't. Yeah, maybe one rom-com. But I would not have remembered him from that.
Do you get him confused with Owen Wilson?
No.
Because you've not seen any Owen Wilson films either.
No, I know who he is because he's funny. I don't know. And I don't think I've seen the Texas Buyers Club because I watched a trailer. I watched quite a bit of it, in reading this book. Bloody hell.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Texas Buyers Club either because...
Dallas.
Was there a sequel?
Didn't see the spin-off. But the whole film looks absolutely brilliant. So basically, I didn't really know him. I went in, absolutely, don't know who you are, don't know what you've done. And now I know. Too much.
Yeah. Yeah, he talks about, nocturnal emissions a lot. Anyway.
Yeah, he really does.
We should get into it, shouldn't we?
Yeah, let's go.
Matthew McConaughey. It's actually his real name.
It is his real name. Born in 1969 in Uvalde, Texas. They definitely weren't poor. They were doing all right. His dad was very, very, very good at selling pipes. It's oil. I think they got a bit oil rich. By the way, he doesn't say a lot about his family background, but I watched this interview with his mum.
What's she like?
I've pieced together a few things that he didn't quite write in the book.
Okay.
I think she's a bit nuts, actually.
Yeah, well, she has to be. I've got issues with her and Dad.
And she wanted a lot of attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what she said in this interview was that her dad was the sort of big man of the house, a bit like the man she married.
Yeah.
And he used to be the bodyguard for Al Capone. And so this is Matthew's mum saying this. Matthew's mum's mum left home and left the dad to bring them up. So the bodyguard to Al Capone brought up his mum on his own. And then she does that a lot as well, leaves home a lot and leaves the dad to bring up the family.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. His mum and dad were married 3 times to each other. They divorced each other twice. I mean, that's insane in itself, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, he doesn't say too much. It wasn't terrible. There was always love. I think he's glossing over it.
Oh, no, are you kidding? They were extremely violent, his mum and dad, and they would fight.
To
Honestly,
each other.
The dad beat up the boys.
He did get beatings, yeah.
I take such issue with these parents. Matthew McConaughey's parents would have full-on violent fights in front of the kids, and there's one bit where he says that the mum grabbed the phone and smashed the dad in the face with it. It broke his nose, and they were going at each other, and then they dropped to their knees and made love.
Yep.
This is how my parents communicated.
I know.
It's kind of like you're doing that in front of the children. And Matthew McConaughey is relating that in his book like it's just normal. There's another line where he says, This is why my dad broke mum's middle finger to get it out of his face 4 separate times. This is how my mum and dad loved each other.
Yeah.
That's so fucked up.
Yeah. There's a picture of his mum's hand with a really crooked middle finger. But that one incident that he talks about, she was goading him. Going, you big fat man, you finished your pie yet? Right up until he lashed out at her. She was goading him. They were a nightmare, the pair of them. A total nightmare.
Well, they got divorced twice and married 3 times.
Yeah, I know.
They kept going back to each other. I mean, it's beyond toxic. It's perhaps the most toxic parent relationship we've read about so far.
Yeah.
And we've read about some fucked up families.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, I keep coming back to his parents when I'm trying to work him out because he's such a dichotomy, isn't he? He's like this.
Well,
he's like a redneck, aggressive hippie.
Stoner. Yeah.
You know, he's just a total mishmash. And you wonder who he would really be if he didn't have those parents. I think he might be a really mellow, peaceful man.
Do you know?
Or is that just him trying to find out who he is?
Do you know the gossip that his dad might not be his dad?
No.
Okay, so this isn't in the book, but this is something that came to light about 3 or 4 years ago. So recently, Matthew McConaughey did this TV show with Woody Harrelson called True Detective. And then they figured out that they might be half-brothers because Matthew McConaughey's mum realised that she had been seeing Woody Harrelson's dad back in the day. So that's really a weird coincidence.
Right, that's insane because he talks quite a lot about how him and Woody Harrelson are really, really good mates.
Yeah.
As he was saying that, I was thinking, bloody hell, they look so similar. You know, because the one was up for the part in one film and then the other one got it. And I was thinking, yeah, they are actually quite interchangeable if you think about it.
Yeah.
Ah, whoa.
So that's a real possibility that they share the same dad, which would make Matthew McConaughey not so like his actual dad that he grew up with.
Right. Because, of course, okay, so he had an older brother who was born in 1953, Michael, who got oil rich. He was a millionaire by the time he was in his 20s. Amazing. And then in 1963, when he was 10, he said he wanted a little brother for his birthday, so they adopted a boy, Pat.
Yeah.
And that's great, because he sounds like a good lad.
That's lovely.
Yeah. And then because the dad wasn't supposed to be able to be fertile, but then they accidentally had Matthew 7 years later.
So Matthew was born in 1969. When Mum was in the hospital giving birth, it actually says, this is the only line in the book that might suggest that Matthew McConaughey's dad is not his dad. He says that when Mum went to the hospital to give birth to Matthew, Dad went to the bar instead of the hospital the day I was born because he suspected I wasn't his anyway.
Oh my God, I didn't take that seriously. I guess if she kept running off and getting divorced.
Yeah, so that really plays into the fact that Woody Harrelson's dad might be Matthew McConaughey's dad.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't it? It is really wow.
And yeah, she did keep running away. She totally could have got pregnant by someone else. Who knows?
Yeah.
And you can't look at the brothers lined up and say they all look the same because they don't. One's so much older. They look nothing like each other. Shit, they don't.
Well, one's adopted.
But he does look quite a lot like his dad.
And there are spaces between them, actually. There's 3 boys. So Michael is 10 before they adopt Pat. And then it's 6 or 7 years later before Matthew was born. So that's really spaced out, actually, for kids.
Yeah, the actual real births are 16 years apart.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Isn't it?
Anyway, yeah, they are nightmare parents. You're right. It's a nightmare. He comes from a crazy...
I think it's child abuse.
Yeah,
I think it's beyond domestic abuse. I think the children are involved in it, really. They're right there in the room witnessing it. I mean, the way Matthew McConaughey talks about it, all of his self-realization of philosophical ramblings, he doesn't ever once pay reference to the fact that he grew up in an abusive household. He just talks about it as if it was normal.
Yeah, he does. He does talk about it as if it was normal.
So he literally deconstructs every other emotion he has in this book, but he doesn't reference that in the same way, which is really telling. I feel bad that they grew up in this house. It sounds like a nightmare.
But it seems to me that he backs it up. It seems to me that he absolutely idolises his dad, and he would want to be like his dad. You know, and his dad put him through these rites of passage, and then they'd be a man. You know, it's not like he's not condoning it. He actually thinks it's right. So that his dad got his oldest son drunk and then said, let's go and steal some pipes from his oldest son's firm. And when he resisted, they had got in a massive fight and he ended up knocking his dad out.
Yeah, but that's horrendous.
Yeah, it's horrific.
No,
but when his dad came to, he's like, "Son, you're a man now." And so that was his rite of passage.
Yeah, but the trauma that young man went through, because he had to basically knock his dad out, and then he thought he'd killed him or whatever. It's awful.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying all this violence is really awful, but he doesn't write that it's awful. He writes that, and that's the day, and he became a man. And then his middle brother, he woke him up in the middle of the night. He was 8 years old, and he was like 120 miles away, the dad, in some barn, having some competition to piss 6 foot high or something. So he goes and wakes up his son. He drives 120 miles, gets his 8-year-old son, because he's made a bet.
Oh, yeah.
If he can hit that mark, then he'll get this motorbike. And so he drives him 120 miles in the middle of the night, and the boy pisses like 8 foot high. Totally beats all the men, and he goes home with a bike. And that's his rite of passage. Now he's proud of his son. This is how he writes it. And then when he got tested, he'd robbed a pizza, and he lied, said no, he didn't. His dad went mad. He said his dad dropped on all fours and go on then, hit me, go on then, give me your best. And he pissed himself with fear. And he said, I, to this day, regret that was my chance to be a man. So then, of course, like, I don't know, a couple of years later, he talks about leaving this bar with his dad, and they paid the bill and they were leaving, drunk, obviously. And the bouncer said, have you paid up? And he said, yes, sir. And the bouncer put his hand on the dad's chest to stop him leaving. And he just saw red, Matthew, and he just lashed out at this bouncer, had him on the pool table, was lashing him, really describes violently beating this man until he got pulled off. And his dad said, that's enough, son. And then he said, then I was a man in my dad's eyes. Then I'd passed my test. And he goes on to sort of talk lovingly about his dad. So he's not judging any of this. In his world, he was trained. It's like army training. And he passed the test and now he's a man. He's not judging this. He thinks it's good parenting.
It's bizarre. I hated reading it because it's like cavemen almost, you know.
I know.
That you assert your masculinity by kicking the shit out of someone.
I know. Yeah, a bouncer just doing his job. There's no sorrow about that.
Right, and Matthew McConaughey at this point is, 18? He's not, like, he's beating up a bouncer. I can almost, like, accept that. But his dad, who he is looking up to, regularly beats up a woman, i.e. his wife, and beats up and goads his sons, his young sons, into physical violence.
Yeah.
He's a sadistic bully.
He doesn't see it like that.
But yeah, you're right. Somehow Matthew McConaughey absolutely idolizes him.
He does.
Yeah, but I guess he's been, what would you say? I mean, he's kind of been radicalized, I suppose, because that's his dad and he grew up in that house.
I think he has.
And he thinks that violence is an acceptable form of personal expression.
Yeah.
Like, it does blow my mind in this book because he's so mindful and thinks he's so wise and stuff. But I think the thing that makes it all completely fall apart, this airport bookshelf psychology, is that he doesn't ever deconstruct or consider that his dad's violence, which ruled that family, is anything but something to be admired.
I know, I've had this throughout reading this whole book. I was like, this person doesn't sit well with me. I'm really not sure about this person. Then I'm like, I'm not here to judge this person. I'm just here to read this person's story. Everyone's different. You know, I've got to try not to judge this man. It's really hard.
No, I still like the man. Like you say, not judging him. I'm judging his own self-elevation to the psychological guru. But just reading, you know, I'm not sat here saying he's an arsehole for doing that. I feel quite bad for him, really. It's just...
Yeah.
Growing up like that, it's just horrible. But as an adult and looking back and writing your life story, to write about your dad breaking your mum's finger 4 separate occasions and then saying this is how they express their love to one another, it's like, no.
Yeah, no. I've just got to go back to that whole passage where he describes the dialogue, though, between them. She was goading him. She is just as bad. She's not just an innocent victim in this.
Oh.
She's a troublemaker.
Yeah, okay, so her dad was Al Capone's bodyguard. She clearly grew up knowing how to stick up for herself, right?
Yeah.
But dad is 6'4".
Do you not remember that dialogue?
Oh, about being a fat fucker and all that,
Why would you goad him like that, then? Yeah, and just going on and on and on and on and on until he reacted. That's someone who wants attention in all the wrong ways. She is not
Is that
normal
what are you
either.
saying? Is that somebody who wants her finger broken? What are you saying?
Yeah, it's weird. What are you doing that for? It was absolutely unmotivated, that one bit that he wrote about. She's absolutely from nothing goaded him into a fight. It's weird. People are weird. They're really weird.
But he's like 6'4", 265 pounds. He used to play for the Green Bay Packers.
So why would you do that? Exactly. So leave him alone.
No, he could restrain her. No, he could restrain her. He doesn't have to like break her bones. Do you know what I mean?
That was their thing, though, wasn't it? That was definitely.
Well, that's
their
what
thing.
Matthew McConaughey says. But she did leave him 3 times, but she kept going back.
Yeah, and don't forget, he died having sex with his mum at like 7 a.m. on a Monday morning.
No, having sex with his wife. You've got to rephrase that.
Oh, sorry, that's bad. Matthew's dad died having sex with his wife, Matthew's mum.
That's better.
At like 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. on a Monday morning before he went to work.
Yeah.
They were passionate, you know? This is some crazy messed up thing they had that unfortunately it's just trained these kids up in a really warped way. He has a list of his youth. In this list he says, I was blackmailed into losing my virginity age 15. Age 18, I was molested in the back of a van by a man when I was unconscious. And then the list carries on and he never refers back to that. With all this, you can read between the lines, he's quite messed up. With sex, violence, parents, who he is, he's more messed up than he ever admits to, like you say. He's not dealing with it at all. He thinks he is by being stoned and philosophising, but he's not. And drinking.
All things considered, though, it's like his biggest transgression in adult life was playing the bongos in the nude. So he hasn't actually done that badly, really, all things considered.
In public, yes. Unless he's got really good lawyers, we don't know anything.
And and also what he's chosen to tell us in his book that he wrote. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, when he was 7, his mum entered him into, what was it, Mr. Texas something competition.
Yes.
And there was a photo that his mum proudly displayed on the wall of little 7-year-old Matthew holding the trophy. And she said, you won Little Mr. Texas.
Yeah.
And for years, he was really proud that he won it. And then this photo's in the book. And then he said, like, years later, he kind of was looking at it a bit closer. And on the trophy, it says runner-up. And this photo is in the book. And sure enough, it says Little Mr. Texas runner-up. But his mum always told him that he had won it. And then when he said to her, it said runner-up on the trophy, she said, well, no, they didn't know what they were talking about. You were the winner. And basically, you can go and get anything you want in life. I think that was a really good lesson to that little boy. And he has gone out and got what he wanted in life, actually.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
But it's based on lies.
It's based on lies. And he also wrote a poem for his poetry competition. She read it and went, that's all right, but this one's better. Opened a book and found another one that's better. Use that one. It's like, yeah, but I didn't write it. It doesn't matter, son, as long as you say you wrote it. So he did, and he won that.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, they're a family of hustlers, aren't they?
Yeah, totally, yes.
Actually, Dad was a real hustler. The fact that he would, when the oldest son was doing really well selling pipes, the dad would make him go to the people that he'd sold pipes to and steal them back at night.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a real family. I hope the other boys are all right as well.
Yeah, I do. Well, they're doing well, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've got money, but is that everything?
I know that doesn't mean everything, does it? Well, it turns out his middle brother, Pat, he actually has production companies in Hollywood and makes films and produces projects and directs. And they work together sometimes. Yeah, he never mentions that.
Never mentions that.
No, he doesn't. But they had a lot of laughs, that's for sure. Vegas, golfing. Yeah, they get on well.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Good band of brothers. Yeah, I like his story as well about when he was living in a trailer with his dad when his mum was in Florida, doing what? Shagging Woody Harrelson's dad? Or whatever.
Yeah, right.
And he snuck out every single night for a whole summer and stole bit by bit loads of wood from a construction site. This is stealing again and stuff, and he did it without his dad ever finding out. every single night, and he built a 13-story tree house in the woods. That's an amazing achievement for a kid. He was 10, and he said,
"How big was the tree?"
Yeah, right. I'm picturing a very large tree. He said it was the best summer of his life. I've been thinking, I wonder if some of his travels and exploits were him trying to capture that happiness again, being on his own and just doing something.
Yeah, right. It's funny, we often realise that the people in these books who are hugely famous and successful have this almost unlimited reserve of energy.
Yes,
and
very
Matthew
much so.
McConaughey definitely is one of these people, isn't he?
Totally, yeah.
I mean, he's building a 13-story treehouse in the middle of the night at the age of 10 for the whole summer. That's kind of quite unusual, really.
Yeah, I know.
He's an unusual boy, isn't he?
Definitely, yeah. And then at school, of course, he says he's all tanned and he had this truck and he would talk over the tannoy and flirt with the girls and stuff, and everyone loved him. And then he switched his truck with a red sports car and stood looking like a poser, and nobody cared about him. And that was one of his big lessons in life, is that actually you have to do more than that. You can't just lean against the car. You've actually got to do something, get involved. So he switched it back. It's him trying to find out who he is all the time. He doesn't know who he is. Oh Christ! So when he leaves high school, he's not quite sure what he wants to do. His mother suggests, "Why don't you travel?" So he goes, "Yeah, brilliant." Oh my God! How much did you love all this story? The Dooleys.
Well, this is like we had this recently in Rebel Wilson and Gina Davis.
Oh, yeah,
it seems to be an
true.
American thing. Like in England, we have student exchange, but it lasts like a week, and it's just from a family in Europe. Like France or Germany. But in America, at the age of 16, it seems like you're sent on the other side of the world on your own for a year. It's a big deal.
There's 3 people now who've had their life changed by this year abroad completely.
Yeah.
This is the weirdest by far.
I don't like it at all.
It's awful.
So he goes to Australia. Awful. He had the choice of Sweden or Australia, and he chose Australia because of the surfing, and they spoke English, and Elle Macpherson lived there. Yeah. Good reason as any. I
really hope that with all his money and fame that he took himself to Australia and actually has seen the sights now. Don't you?
Yeah.
He didn't get to see Australia at all.
Well, he thought he was going to Sydney, and actually what happened when the family picked him up at the airport, they just kept driving and driving and driving, and he ended up in this tiny little town in the arse end of nowhere.
That's exactly right.
And he actually calls it a living mental hell.
Yeah, like a prison, I guess, but even worse. Well, not worse, probably similar to prison in that you've got these people hovering around you and you do not know what they're going to do next, and you do not feel safe, which is an awful feeling if you don't feel safe for a whole year. But you got to picture these people, they're really short. The bloke was 5'4" for a start, and then he'd go, "I need to see you in my office," and he'd get behind his desk and he'd be like 2 feet taller. He must have built a platform for himself. It's right, to me in my mind, they're Gary Larson cartoons. Yeah. That's how I picture them. Yeah. Because there's a mother, a father and a son, and the son's got a girlfriend, and they all sit around the table in silence. Oh my God. And it's at some point when he decides to become vegetarian, he starts eating lettuce with ketchup. 1 head of lettuce with ketchup every night for dinner.
I think you still have to do that in Australia if you're vegetarian. They're a very meat-orientated country. Like they like barbecues and stuff. If you're vegetarian,
it's just... lettuce and ketchup is all you get.
Lettuce and ketchup, yeah.
He's just so cut off, poor fellow. And the bloke kept saying to him, you will learn to appreciate fine wines, fine cheeses, and not to voice your opinion for the masses. I'm kind of like, what's he talking about? He's completely insane. When they get him in the room, they say, "Come on, Matthew, come into this room." And there's about 19 relatives and neighbours all in a circle, all facing the middle. And he comes in, he's like, "What the hell is this?" And they say, "Hey, Matthew, why don't you..." And they're talking about the son's girlfriend. "Why don't you give her a kiss on the lippies?" They say it twice, on the lippies. And everyone's chuckling. It's weird, isn't it? It's insane.
On the lippies.
He goes over to her and he says, "So you don't mind if I don't do what they're asking?" "No," sort of thing. And he goes, "Don't you ever do that to me again." There's a couple of times he stood up for himself. That's one of them. And the other one was he wouldn't call them mum and pop.
Oh,
In the middle of the night, they're wailing, crying about it.
Oh my God, they were so weird.
It's so awful.
It's like a horror film.
It is like a horror film.
Yeah. And he was I mean, he's a kid, basically. What is he, 17, 18 this year?
Yeah.
And he's gone to the other side of the world and like in a tiny town, literally hours from anywhere, with this weird freak family. Oh, God, I hated it. But do you know what? Eventually, he did get himself out of it, and he went to stay the rest of his stay with a couple of other families, and he did kind of have a nicer time. And he got jobs and stuff out there.
Yeah.
The other families kind of said to him, we can't believe you stayed so long with them.
But also he kept rationalising it, going, it's cultural differences.
Oh, yeah.
It's just cultural differences. Because he didn't know any better, because he'd never been to Australia.
Yeah, right.
And by literally his last day, they had a party for him. They were going, can't believe you stayed with that family so long. They're freaks.
Yeah.
And he's like, everyone was laughing.
It's not funny.
It's not funny, but I think that shaped him. He said he turned introspective. Before that, I think he's probably quite full of himself.
Do you know what? I thought about that because obviously in high school, he was a straight A student. You know, he worked, so he had his truck. The girls loved him. He also was prom king, wasn't he? There's that photo of him.
Yeah, he was voted most handsome.
Most handsome. So he was really possibly the biggest deal in his high school.
Yes.
All of a sudden, he's on the other side of the world. Nobody knows him, and he's being treated like shit.
Yeah, he had to learn humility.
And he actually says, it was a year that shaped who I am today, a year when I found myself because I was forced to.
Yeah.
I mean, but he's being shaped through trauma.
Yeah, no.
His parents. And then he goes and exchange and actually gets even worse parents than his own.
He's more traumatised. I know. Oh my God.
Poor man.
I know.
And actually, of course, it was an exchange program. So they had a son his age, but he had gone to live in America. Yeah. And then he met him when he went back. And of course, this guy just had a great time basically being Matthew McConaughey, drinking beer and hanging out with all these cool dudes in America.
Yeah, shagging all the girls.
When Matthew McConaughey was having a miserable time living his life.
But imagine that kid grew up in that family. That would have been the best year of his entire life.
Yeah, of course.
It'd be interesting to know what happened to him. I think he'd have gone back and left home immediately.
Well, one would hope so.
Oh my God. Anyway, so here we are. The newly formed Matthew McConaughey. He comes back, beats up that bouncer. You see, he never apologises for beating a bouncer. Bouncers don't deserve to be beaten to a pulp. No, he doesn't even say, I'm sorry I did that. The bloke went to hospital. You know, he doesn't see it like you and I do. He just sees that as this is how you become a man. You know, hence he took himself to that African village and had a big fight there. That's he's very primal. You know?
I'm trying to figure out like the nature nurture thing because obviously he is a very sensitive hippie, right? That because he's creative and he wrote this book, and I believe he wrote this book. Whereas some of the other ones we write, it's quite obvious they've used a ghostwriter. But I do believe this is Matthew McConaughey writing this. So he's a real thoughtful creative, right?
Oh, definitely.
But also he has this primal streak where he's putting value on conquering people physically.
Yes.
And I wonder if the nature is the poet, but the nurture from his dad is the fighter. Because they shouldn't really go together in the way that they do.
Yeah.
Because he is definitely both of those things.
Yeah, he really is. And he's been smoking weed since a very young age because he mentions it a lot on and off, and drinking. You know, the weed makes your mind go all, you know, off on tangents and thinking that this thought is the most amazing, mind-blowing thought you've ever had, which is why he writes them all down. And then he's put them all in this book. You know, that's the hippie side as well. It's no wonder he got cast in that Dazed and Confused.
Yeah, but he ends up going to law school, doesn't he? Which is odd for a hippie kid. But then actually when he goes to film school, he's more preppy than the other kids. He's kind of just straddling these two worlds. Anyway, he gets on much better at film school and he's going out and he's making contacts and stuff. I mean, he gets Dazed and Confused quite soon, doesn't he?
Yeah, so he went and met his mate who was bartending on the top floor at the Hyatt. So that's the sort of place cool people hang out. So he's just hanging out there getting free drinks. And he ends up getting drunk with this bloke, Don Phillips, who was producing Dazed and Confused. And they get absolutely hammered, drive home, and then he gets a spliff out and says, hey, do you want to share this joint to Don Phillips? They have a joint. It's like 5 a.m. or so, or whatever. And the bloke phones in the next day, drops the script around, says, do you want to do a few scenes in this film? And it was only supposed to be 3 scenes, and he ended up working for 3 weeks. They just expanded his role, and they let him improvise and all sorts. And I watched loads of clips of it, and he's playing a stoner.
Yeah.
He's playing himself, really, kind of, although he said he's playing his cooler brother. So, yeah, that literally put him on the map, acting-wise. Just getting drunk with a bloke, getting stoned, being himself. He never had to pretend. He never tried to audition.
But also that's a hustle, isn't it, that his family have? You know, he gets his first important role from going over and schmoozing somebody in a bar. And
that's what I mean. Schmoozing
getting stoned
would be someone else, but I think he genuinely got drunk and then got stoned with this bloke. It just seems a bit more genuine,
right?
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So he's actually still at film school when he's filming Dazed and Confused.
Yeah, that's right.
And he signs with a talent agency. So he is also getting parts on commercials, and he's in a couple of music videos. But actually, he does go back and finish the film school course. He seems to be responsible with it, if you know what I mean. And I wondered whether that was because his dad was disappointed that he dropped out of law school, so he felt he had to see through. But he basically was already got the beginnings of a career, but did continue at film school.
Yeah, he got cast as a bike rider in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And he said, actually, could I be the killer? Could I audition for the killer? And got it by literally being terrifying with the secretary and the casting director. And I watched a clip of it. I couldn't even watch to the end. It's absolutely horrifying.
And that's Renee Zellweger, isn't it?
Yeah, I was really surprised. I didn't know she's been around that long.
That's like a really early film but they both went on to win Best Acting Oscars, and they were both in this really shit film together.
Yeah, well, he was horrifying in it.
Yeah. He was. He's a good actor.
He is a good actor.
And at this point, do you know what? When he went to film school, it wasn't for acting. It was for production. So he's not had any acting lessons at this point.
No.
He gets them soon and realises that it's,
not for him.
They're interfering with him. He's doing all right without any acting.
Yeah, because he's so natural. Yeah.
He's a natural psychopath.
He is.
He's a natural chainsaw massacring psychopath.
Yeah, he is.
So because he's studied film production, his contacts on Dazed and Confused get him a job on the Hudsucker Proxy as an assistant, which is the current Coen brothers film. And he goes to Hollywood to live. Don Phillips, who was a producer on Dazed and Confused, he arranges to go and sleep on his sofa. But actually he goes all the way there, and the film is postponed, so he doesn't have a job. And so Matthew McConaughey says to Don Phillips, can you get me auditions? And, I need to work. I don't have a job now. And Don Phillips said, stop talking like this. You're coming across as needy, and this town does not respond to needy. He says, you need to get out of here, show people that you don't care.
Yeah.
And that will really work in your favour. So then Matthew McConaughey, he's just arrived in Hollywood to start his career. He then goes off to Europe for a month, rents a motorcycle, and just tours it around with a couple of friends that he met on Dazed and Confused.
Yeah.
So he just has this amazing, holiday.
Yeah, biking across Europe. It's absolutely brilliant. And he comes back and he's ready and he wants to work, but he doesn't need to. He's in the right state of mind.
That's amazing. That was such good advice from this
really
producer. I mean,
advice.
really, at this point, Matthew McConaughey is kind of no one, really. He's just a good-looking actor who had a couple of parts in... I mean, Dazed and Confused was a hit, but he wasn't like a main part in it.
No.
So this shows you how also influential Don Phillips is, because when Matthew McConaughey comes back, he says, okay, right, you're ready. Tomorrow you've got a meeting with the William Morris Talent Agency, which is the biggest deal in Hollywood, and they sign him up.
Yeah. And he says, make sure you tell them you want to direct as well, because they love that, because you're less needy.
Yeah, it makes you seem less needy.
And of course, he sits there he's 6'4" or something, tanned, sure of himself. Yeah.
Right, here's the thing. I can lay testament to how good looking and charismatic he is, because he's with the William Morris talent agency, and 1 week after signing, he gets a part of Drew Barrymore's husband in Boys on the Side. Now, I watched Boys on the Side when it came out, and there is a cop in that film who arrests Drew Barrymore, and they get married. And I remember when I was watching that film, I thought, wow, who is that actor? He's so good looking and charismatic.
Wow.
Right, and I forgot about that. And then about a year ago, and I don't know why I thought about it a year ago. We read Drew Barrymore a year ago, but I don't think she talked about Boys on the Side.
Yeah.
But about a year ago, I thought to myself, I wonder what happened to that actor who played her husband, because he really made an impression on me.
Wow.
And I just forgot about him. And then reading this book, it's like, oh my God, that was Matthew McConaughey.
Amazing.
So that made me realise why, as soon as he goes to Hollywood, he's getting picked up. He's getting a really good job straight away. He really has it. He has screen presence, and that's being recognised, and that's why he's off to a really good start.
Yeah, that's right.
But that's what it's about, he's a film star. He's a film star.
Yeah, you're right. He's got the body, he's got the face, and he's got the other thing that you can't, like there's something, it's all going on, you can see it behind the eyes or in the eyes.
Yeah.
Plus, he's a really good actor. He researches the person, he morphs into them, he works out who they are. He doesn't just walk it through, he really, really gets into these jobs. Yeah, he's a really good actor.
And actually, when he's working on that film, the others, Drew Barrymore, Whoopi Goldberg, Mary Louise Parker, are all staying in the Swiss Hotel in town. And Matthew McConaughey rents a guest house outside of town, and he adopts a little rescue puppy.
Yeah.
And so even at this early, like his first big deal of a film where there's other big film stars, he's kind of keeping on the outside of that and doing his own thing,
Yeah, he's not playing the game.
He's not playing the game.
Determined to do it his way.
Yeah. So then he gets this other film called Angels in the Outfield, which is a baseball film. And he walks into that audition. He's got his American flag baseball cap on, and they basically say to him, can you play baseball? He says, yes, I can. They say, great, you've got the job. So that absolutely shows that he's getting it. By the way, he's the all-American guy, isn't he?
Oh, yes.
He is the guy that graduated from high school with the most handsome sash.
Yeah, the blue eyes, the blonde hair, the whole thing.
I mean, good for him, because he can back it up with good acting. So he's just found his niche, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So this is when he does his acting lessons, and they don't quite work out for him. But he's getting good auditions for bigger films now. And there's a film called A Time to Kill, which is based on a John Grisham novel. And it's his first big breakout role, but he didn't audition for that role. He auditioned for a much smaller role. And then he said to Joel Schumacher, I'd really like to play the lead. And Joel Schumacher said to him, I'd like you to play the lead as well, but there's no way the studio is going to pay, is going to let you, basically still a pretty unknown actor in Hollywood terms, to take the lead role. But fortunately, what happened is that Sandra Bullock was cast in it as a secondary role, whilst her career was growing. I think she'd been in Speed. Anyway, While You Were Sleeping came out, which is like this rom-com, which became this sleeper hit, and it really took off and took like $80 million. So all of a sudden, Sandra Bullock has real currency in Hollywood, which means now that the studio will allow Joel Schumacher to put a lesser-known actor in the lead role.
Yeah.
And that's what he does.
That's the first coincidence. The second crazy coincidence, which is so weird, is that Woody Harrelson was going to be cast in that part. And then these two people murdered a bloke called Bill Savage, right? And they said they were inspired by the Natural Born Killers murderers, man and woman.
Yeah, I remember
and that bloke, Bill Savage, was actually really good friends with John Grisham. So there's no way at that point John Grisham would have allowed the inspiration of his friend's murder to be cast.
Wow.
Because Woody Harrelson played that character in Natural Born Killers. So he was out and Matthew was in. That's insane. How many? 350 million people in America. And two people killed John Grisham's mate.
Yeah, right.
Inspired by Woody Harrelson's character. I'm so confused by that. It's absolutely bizarre. Isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's bonkers. And the fact that, that Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson are quite probably half-brothers.
Yes, I know. Yeah. That's the point where I realised how interchangeable they actually are, because they will look alike.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was 1996 when it opened. It's got Samuel L. Jackson, Kevin Spacey. It looks like a really good film, actually.
Yeah, this is a real
I've not seen it.
ensemble cast. No, I remember it at the time, it being a hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then he said he almost noticed immediately that when he went out, people started recognizing who he was.
Yeah, he totally made him famous.
And what's his response to that? He kind of all of a sudden, that messes with his head.
Yeah.
Fame is turning him into somebody he doesn't like, so he hikes all the way in the desert to go and meditate in a monastery for a bit, sort his head out.
Yes.
I mean, most people don't do that.
No, they don't. But what really flipped him was that his mum became a fan. He'd phone up his mum and she'd feel sycophantic. She just wanted a piece of it. Yeah, she started doing interviews and being on telly and stuff, and he just had enough.
Yeah. He's not even really massively famous at this point. He's just becoming famous, and his mum is already milking it for attention.
That's right.
What a nightmare.
I know, yeah. Yeah, especially when you need your mum at that exact point. We totally forgot to mention that his very first role, when he was doing that 3 weeks on Dazed and Confused, 5 days into filming, his dad died. That's when his dad died of the heart attack. So he had to deal with that. So he actually did need his mum, and his mum became a fan. That's like a nightmare in itself. So yeah, he bought a van, a beautiful van. It's pictured in the book, one of those Airstream, what's it? There's like silver, there's amazing things. And he drove it around America for 3 years. He lived on the road, and he lived in trailer parks, and people got over who he was really fast, and then he'd just make friends, and he sort of learned better than drama school because he absorbed the characters he met and took notes, and it just met really real people.
I thought about the logic of this. I think it's a really good idea, and I don't know why more film actors don't do it, because when you're filming in America, you're often going to different sides of the country, or definitely staying away from home. The films are never shooting in your neighborhood. And so you're forever living in hotels or different houses. Actually, if you've got a trailer and you've kitted it out like a home and you've got your dog with you, you just drive to where you're filming.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant.
It's such a good idea. And he actually said as well, if film directors or casting directors wanted to meet him, he would get them to fly to an airport and he would go and pick them up. And then they would drive in his trailer and talk, and then he'd drop them off at another airport. I've never heard of anybody doing this. It makes total sense. Like, he is totally living his life on his own terms, and he's having a Hollywood career on his own terms, which is quite something, I think.
Yeah. I was watching, right, I'm a little bit ashamed to admit it, but I was watching Gossip Girl the other day.
For Sebastian Bach?
No, that's the other one. I can't remember what that's called now already. But a character said, he looks really rough. He looks like Matthew McConaughey between films. So I thought, wow, in America it was obviously quite known that he took to the trailer park life.
Yeah.
Then let himself go between films and probably just got stoned up mountains and stuff.
I was going to say then he has another wet dream.
Oh, yeah, we haven't mentioned it before.
Oh, have we not yet?
No.
Oh, he keeps having wet dreams.
He has a series of wet dreams.
I know, but they change his life every time. It's quite a response that he has.
Yeah, he does follow them.
I know, but hang on, this wet dream, the first time he says it, I couldn't quite work it out because he says that he dreamt he was floating down the Amazon. So when he said wet dream, I thought he was just being funny, the fact he was floating in a river. But he actually ejaculated, right?
Yes, at the end of it. Yes, that's correct.
Wow.
Yeah, he does tell us a lot of stuff that we don't necessarily need to know, but it's important to him. Yeah. So.
And so because he had a wet dream floating down the Amazon River, he actually goes to the Amazon on a solo trip, right?
Yes.
He just goes exploring.
Total adventure.
Yeah, I love this. I love it.
Yeah, it really sorts his head out every time because he's not getting too caught up with the whole Hollywood thing. He's remembering there's a whole world out there of people in villages just getting on with living, Keeps him grounded, clearly.
Yeah, it does. It realigns him spiritually every time.
And another thing that keeps him grounded is moving to Austin, Texas, because as we know from Willie Nelson's book, Austin is the most hippie-ish place of all of Texas, at least anyway. But it's a really bizarre place. I think he describes it where he says you can walk into a bar and there's a cowboy sat next to a hippie, sat next to a lesbian, sat next to, I don't know, someone in flip-flops, whatever, and everyone's getting along together.
Someone in flip-flops. A cowboy, a hippie, a lesbian, and somebody in flip-flops.
Someone in flip-flops. Yeah, it's just a melting pot. And so that sort of suits him because he's a melting pot of all those people. Yes, he was having a great time. That's where he got arrested, in his own home, because he'd been on a 2-day and 2-night bender and he was drunk and stoned. We don't know what he was on. And he was playing the bongos in the middle of the night.
2:30 on a Monday morning,
Yeah, and they busted his door down and got him on the floor with the knee in the back. It's a bit extreme.
Yeah, because he's not, no, well...
And he's naked.
It is, but then, I know, right, but you're listening, when he tells his side of the story, as he does in this book, it does seem a bit heavy-handed and inappropriate, but he's in a residential area, it's 2:30 in the morning on a Monday, and he's making a lot of noise playing his bongos. I guess people have to get up for work the next day.
Yeah, but
and so somebody calls the police and says there's some noise, and the police are knocking on the door, and he can't answer. So of course, to make it so, they have to kick the door in. I understand why. I mean, why did they get him on the floor with a knee in the back? Because he's probably resisting arrest.
Yeah, which he says he was because he's in his own home.
I mean, if he just put his hands up and said, "Okay, I'll stop playing the bongos," that would have been the end of it. But he obviously didn't. he probably said, "Oh, you've kicked my door in, you assholes." I don't know. He doesn't tell us. He just tells us the injustice of it all.
Yeah, he does. They kept trying to give him a blanket and he's going, "No, I want everyone to see me naked because they'll know I was just in the middle of something."
Yeah, it proves my innocence.
Yeah. Anyway, he gets off from that. But then he said 2 days later, all of Austin, Texas, everyone had T-shirts saying "Bongo Naked." And obviously he got quite famous for it.
Yeah, but the shame of that whole episode is all of a sudden people knew where he lived, and the anonymity that he had living in that town kind of disappeared all of a sudden. You know, he became a spectacle there, so he moved again.
Okay, let's list some films he did that are massive. Contact with Jodie Foster. Never saw that. The Wedding Planner with J-Lo. I did actually see that, but I've somehow forgotten I ever saw him. That was a big box office smash.
Yeah, he's becoming kind of a rom-com guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he got really caught up in rom-coms. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Failure to Launch, that was Sarah Jessica Parker.
Right.
That's why he doesn't go into these films, because they did nothing for him. He enjoyed them, though. He says he enjoyed doing them. But
they said they were fun. I'm sure the money didn't hurt. But
yeah, but it's just not challenging.
No, and I don't think he really meant to become one of Hollywood's rom-com guys. It's not really who he is. But again, he's good looking, and that's going to happen.
Yeah. Oh, so in the meantime, in 2005, he found the woman of his dreams. He totally doesn't mention or name a single girlfriend, just that he was living the playboy life and had some partners and nothing worked out. And he found this gorgeous Brazilian young woman.
They met in a bar.
Actually, she was a cleaner and a waiter. Yeah, love of his life. He's still with her. They've got 3 kids. They're very happy.
Yeah, I know, right? This kind of does make me wonder, because you're right. He doesn't mention any previous girlfriends or co-stars or anything that he had any form of a relationship with. He doesn't even really mention sex or anything.
No, he doesn't. But he says things like, and I had a shower when he was at the Hotel Marmont. I had showers twice a day, rarely alone.
Okay.
You know, he's obviously being the playboy. He just doesn't talk about it or parade it, which is quite nice, really.
And the way he talks about his wife is, actually, if they're still together in a happy relationship, then why would you talk about all the women you've shagged before in your autobiography?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Considering the kind of relationship that his mum and dad had, his relationship with his wife and his sons seems to be the complete opposite.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, which I'm so thankful for reading that. I mean, good for him. I'm so pleased he found that, you know.
Yeah, me too. And he says it's all he ever wanted to be.
Yeah, I do think like the underlying thing in this book, and I know he wrote it himself, but I do think he's kind of like a decent fellow, isn't he?
I hope so, yeah. I hope so. I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, I think he is.
Yeah, let's say he is. Yeah. Yeah, so with his wife, he found the courage to just say no to all the rom-coms that are being offered. And can you imagine the money he's taking? In fact, he says this one script came in 5 million. He said no. Then they offered him 10. He said no. Then they offered him 15 million. And he said no. And it was nearly killing him.
Yeah.
This is insane. So he managed almost 2 years. I think it did trouble him quite a lot that time because he wasn't sure it would pay off. And then suddenly all this amazing work came in, including the Dallas Buyers Club. which he just believed in.
Yeah.
He just believed in that project.
It's like he was away enough for people to forget about him.
Yes.
And then he could come back, like,
reset himself.
Rebranded. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's exactly right.
That's an amazing choice, really. And that is, like you say, that's a brave choice to turn down
it is.
films at the height of your career, really.
Yeah, and it wouldn't necessarily pay off.
No.
There's probably a lot of people who have disappeared who were trying that.
Yeah, for sure.
But, I mean, he just nailed it. This Dallas Buyers Club, he wanted to play this part. A man who has AIDS. There's obviously a lot more to it. But he needed to get down to £135, which is as skinny as he was when he was a young lad. And he just started to diet and lose weight. And they're going, we haven't got the money. This film isn't being made. I don't care. It's going to happen. And they ended up getting 4.9 million, which is nothing. They filmed it in 25 days. I mean, you watch it, you can't even recognise him. It's amazing. Just watching bits of it is amazing.
Yeah.
It's like The Machinist when Christian Bale did that. And it's interesting to see they were in a film together as well, a different film together. Can't remember which one, but I wondered if he phoned him for advice, on how to do that to your body. He was skeletal. What he did to his body, what he did to the character, because he researched it, went to meet the family, just read his diaries, completely got into his head.
All whilst not knowing if the film was going to go ahead yet, because they hadn't even got the funds.
Yeah, they hadn't got the green light, as this book is called. It's all about green lights. Yeah.
Well, it's just that single-minded faith that it would happen, and it did.
Yeah, he had to make it happen, and he won the bloody Oscar for Best Actor.
Yeah, good for him.
In that role. It's amazing. And then right at the end of the book, he gets out this list he'd written in 1992 when it was like 15 days after his dad died, when he was on his first ever acting job. And he said at that point he didn't even think it was going to be his job being an actor. He thought it was going to be a hobby. But he'd written this list of 10 goals in his life, and on that list was winning Best Actor Oscar.
Wow.
Yeah. And he couldn't believe it because he didn't even remember that he'd ever wanted that.
What was also on that list?
It was staying close with his family, his mum. Oh, it's something about keeping your ego in check. Travelling, finding the woman of your dreams and keeping her. Yeah.
Is having a social media channel talking about my Tim Pot philosophy on that list?
Yes, it's number one. No, 1992, there's no such thing. But the very fact that he wrote a Tim Pot philosophy list in 1992.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. On that channel, he's actually does a bit where he goes, look, my new book, Green Light, is now in paperback, because a lot of people said to me, I want to carry this around. This is like a manual for a self-help guide, and now it's available, so you can just put it in your back pocket and take it everywhere with you.
Oh, my God.
He literally thinks that he's going to change people's lives with his self-help book. There may be some lads, I'd say it's particularly aimed at boys, who might think they'll learn stuff from this.
Well, if that's so, I think in the climate of toxic masculinity and all of these blokes like Andrew Tate, then I don't think it's altogether a bad thing that Matthew McConaughey's written this book. Even though you and I are very cynical about it, the crux of it is actually very positive, and it is about self-development. And I can see how people
it is,
will take...
following your dreams.
Yeah.
Literally following your dreams.
But yeah, wet dreams. Following your wet dreams. And also, the thing why I'm so cynical about it is, this is a blue-eyed, white American guy. English is his first language. He's extremely good looking. He's a millionaire. He's a world-famous film star. It's easy to be positive and philosophical, and when you have that much going for you,
True.
I just don't know how useful this advice is to people who don't have all of those things.
Yeah.
I mean, he mentioned being most handsome at his school, but that's a currency. He works in a industry that most of the time relies on how people look, and he's very good looking. And a lot of the things that have happened to him in his life are because he's very good looking. And, he seems to think it's because he has this amazing philosophy on life, which he kind of does. But I think it's only works for people who looked like him, maybe.
Yeah, I agree. I think you almost have to bin all of that philosophy, because I just do see it as really stoned man talking. That's how I read it, because, it's brilliant in your head when you're stoned, but it really isn't when you wake up the next day. I just think that he's stoned all the time. And I think where he's brilliant is how he gets a script, how he works on it, how he develops character, and how he is as an actor. That's where he's brilliant. he shouldn't think he's a great philosopher. He's a really good actor. Leave it there. Walk away.
Yeah, no, yes. Yeah, let's just leave it there.
Yeah, leave it there, Matthew. Leave it there, Oz.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Thrift Shop Biography. We love making this podcast and we're absolutely thrilled that so many of you are already listening. You could really help us out by leaving us a review somewhere, wherever you listen to this podcast. And if you could share us, tell your friends about us, or drop some links on social media. We have a Facebook page called Thrift Shop Biography, so make sure you come over there to hear about the episodes first and what else we're up to. Okay, see you next week. And if you're new here, there are loads more episodes now to go and listen in the back catalogue, so make sure you go and enjoy them. Okay, thank you very much.